Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the unboxing of our brand new Kyosho Inferno NEO ST 3.0. Now in the last episode we opened up the box for the very first time, taking a look at what was included with this kit and briefly saw the stadium truck for the very first time. Now in this episode we will be taking a look at the Inferno NEO ST up close and personal, showing you the whole truck from top to bottom, including all the components, mechanisms, the engine and these big old wheels and tyres, before we break in the engine and fire it up for the first time in the next episode. So let's get straight into it. It is actually massive, quite a bit bigger than the 1/8 buggy, and we will do a comparison video with this and some of our other models in the coming episodes. Quickly, if we take a few measurements, from the furthest point forward to the furthest rear point, it measures 570mm. Roughly, the rear width from the outside of the tyres is 410mm, and similarly on the front we have 410mm also. The main section is approximately 450mm, the rear wing is 90mm, front to back, 210mm wide, and across there it measures 70mm, so similar to the one you'd find on the buggy or our HPI Trophy Buggy 3.5. Just to give you an idea of this scale, this is one of my hands, just about the size of the front hood. And it is also very light, weighing probably not that much more than the buggy at all. Now, where you first start to see some differences between this and the buggy are with these huge wheels and tyres. And actually, in the pictures online, I didn't really think these were too impressive. However, they look a lot better in real life. And of course, they are 17mm hex, and I think if you were to go for new tyres for this, you would have to look for 1/8 truck tyres, not 1/8 buggy tyres. They definitely feel harder than the rubber on the 3.0 buggy version, which is nice, and there's a huge amount of surface area on them to put down the huge power of the engine down onto the floor. I also don't think that there will be a lot of ballooning with these tyres, as they seem nice and tight. And of course pre-glued, which is always nice. On the back here, as you saw in our last video, Kyosho have decided to zip tie the rear end down, just to keep this beast from breaking loose in transit. So let's start off with a look at this awesome body, and there's definitely a lot of plastic here. Again, do look out on our social media sites for pictures of this beauty, because this model looks a lot better in real life. You can see here, the body is held in with 4 clips, and if we remove it, the first thing you can see straight away is a pre-cut hole for the pull starter, which is a really nice touch, and it means you don't have to butcher your shells yourself to make a hole. On the front here you've got a fresh grille, however unlike the buggy there's no hole for the fuel filler cap, but the tank does look pretty big, and we'll tell you how big it is when we find out, because we can't find the size of this anywhere, but it should give us good long run times. And of course you've got the big NEO ST 3.0 along the side, which is a lot more reflective and bright in real life. But the shell feels solid, it fits well, everything is pre-cut and it's ready to go. Now, on to the main attraction. What a superb looking truck. We absolutely love a new Nitro model, and there's nothing quite like a new Kyosho. First of all, let's get rid of these zip ties holding it down and release the beast. There's one. And there's the other. And you can start to see just how much ground clearance this truck is capable of having. Probably as much as our Savage X 4.6, if you wanted it that high. Firstly, if you remember in the last episode, we said the seal on the box had already been broken. Well, the first thing we spotted when we opened it were these little dents on the exhaust, which is a real shame because we like our models to be mint, kept clean and neat for many years. And the muffler on our 30-year-old Kyosho USA 1 doesn't have any dents on it either. I'm not sure if this is related to the box being open, but we also found one scratch around the body mount clip on the body where it has been pushed in. But that's nothing major. The body's going to get scratched, beat up and dirty soon enough. Saying that, the exhaust looks amazing with this chrome finish and Team Tamiya etched onto the top here. But I can't wait to see what this sounds like. And it's actually got a different exhaust to the buggy, which is a two-piece muffler. Now leading on from here, we have the power plant, the Kyosho KE25 SP engine, coming off this really nice solid chrome manifold, which is a lot thicker than the muffler. Now this engine is bigger than the KE21 SP that you find in the buggy version, and this is a 4.1cc engine. Now one thing I am disappointed with is the fact that the engine casing isn't marked at all. Every other Kyosho model we own has a big K stamped on the engine along with the engine code, and it just feels more special and more premium. Whereas this has no markings on it at all, and it feels like any other rebranded casing. It's not major, but for a £470 Kyosho, I would have liked it on there. But you can see the big block there, leading onto the clutch bell, which has a 12-tooth pinion, and of course you can see the plastic carburetor there, leading onto all your servos and other goodies, which we'll take a look at in a second. Now it looks like the base settings for this engine, as I'd expect them to be out the box for braking, are flush screws with the top of the needle housing. Next, let's take a look at the midsection and all the included electronics of this ready set kit. So what you get first are these big old stiff chassis braces, one for the front and one for the rear. And you can see that these are plastic and non-adjustable, unlike the ones we have on our USA 1, but the same ones that you have on the Kyosho MP9 and MP10, and we'll talk about these later on. Next, on the front right hand side, we have our battery compartment, and that comes with your standard AA battery holder, which we'll swap out for a HPI hump pack in our braking video. Now interestingly, there's no rubber seal on this case, which I would have liked to see. But it does have a pretty big lip on it, so I don't think water will be getting in. But don't worry, we'll torture test this fully and show you if water does get in. And quickly, one thing I noticed is that there's also no seal for the wires. So for example, on our Axial SMT10, as you saw in our unboxing video, there was a little rubber flap that closed and sealed around the wires, preventing water from getting in the radio box. But this doesn't have that on the battery box or receiver box. So there's just a big wide open hole there, especially on the receiver box. So you've got waterproof servos, but a receiver box with a wide open hole, but we'll stick a strip of rubber in there and seal it up nicely, and we'll show you how to do that later on, just so no moisture or mud or even dust gets in the boxes. In here we have our receiver, the KR331, and we've actually seen some pretty good reviews on this. It's also got this strip of foam around the outside, I guess to stop it rattling around. Interestingly, unlike the buggy, the boxes are not mounted next to each other, and the battery box is hanging over the edge, maybe to help with balance. But it will be really interesting to compare this to the buggy side by side later on. Here, front and center, we have our waterproof steering servo, the Prefix KS503109MW, which I believe is a 9 kilogram servo at 0.15 seconds. But again, I couldn't find any specs for this. And this is connected to a solid looking steering arm and servo saver running through to the steering linkages here. Next, in the center, we have our throttle servo, again the same one. And the servo horns on these feel absolutely solid. I imagine that these will last forever. Also in the center, we have our center diff, and you can just see there that there's a little grub screw in the diff. Now initially, I thought this was a grub screw to lock the differentials, as you had with the USA 1, which would have been amazing. However, it's just a screw to keep the drive cup connected, and this goes straight through the drive cup shaft. And there's also a little grub screw there to hold the brake levers in. As you can see, as with most buggies, you've got a standard twin brake setup, one pad on each side of the center diff, and they look to be steel discs and a possibly composite brake shoe material in between the metal plates that squeeze the brake pads together. Plenty enough to bring this stadium truck to a stop. And finally, onto the suspension and the front and rear end. Here you've got your adjustable turnbuckles, which are only 3mm diameter and very long, so we'll see how these do in a crash. And of course, these let you adjust your toe angle, and you can also set the camber angle on the front and rear. If we take a look at the front assembly, again you can see just how much suspension travel you have, and these big bore shocks should be able to absorb some mega jumps. What's really nice is that just like the Kyosho USA 1, you've got metal hubs, but you also have real U-joints instead of the normal dog bones with pins in the end, which normally break. And I really love these U-joints. It will be interesting to compare these to the ones on the USA 1 and see if anything has changed in 30 years. And quickly, these measure around 130mm-ish fully extended on the truck. They are plastic bodied, however, with plastic tops and bottoms. As you can just about see on the bottom, you have 3 positions to mount the shocks onto the shock holder. But you also have 2 positions you can mount that holder along those holes on the bottom of the arm. And up on the top side, you have 4 positions to mount the shocks. In terms of the shock tower, the actual tower is metal and the body mount section is plastic. Now on the back end, we have 5 possible positions to mount the shocks along the bottom arm and 6 there along the top. And one of my favourite bits, these mud flaps with a bright neon yellow K on them. And actually, these feel really solid. There's a good solid bit of material there. And what I love is the pivot. So one side is attached to the arm and the other side is attached to the bolt holding the arm to the hub carrier. And they pivot and twist as the suspension moves. And this is something that the buggy doesn't have. And finally, just so you can see the ground clearance of this beast, it is around 85mm. That is huge. I wouldn't have it this high on the track, but if you wanted to go mud bogging or somewhere mega rocky or wet or anywhere, you definitely could, especially if you put some Badland tyres on this. And I'm actually really interested to see how these tyres will perform, especially on hard packed gravel and the track surfaces, but especially on grass, and see how much they grip and dig in. By the look and feel of them, they should be great all-rounders even on tarmac. And again, I don't think we'll have any trouble taking this on some mega jumps. But that's it, our fully detailed look at the brand new Kyosho Inferno NEO ST 3.0. We will be back with a closer look at this stadium truck after running it for the first time and investigating and testing the components. But we are ready to fire this beast up and see it in action for the very first time. So join us for the next episode where we will be walking through and performing the braking procedure from start to finish, taking a look at the tools, how easy it is to fill the tank, how easy it is to tune this engine, as well as taking a look at fitting the battery in and seeing the electronics and servos work for the first time. And then we'll be ready to tear up some ground, so do subscribe for that. But that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video and enjoyed seeing this monster of a stadium truck. Please rate and comment down below and subscribe